Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here today with one of my favorite mind-body providers, Dan Atkins. He also came to see me originally as a patient, but now he is doing the work himself in his own way, and we're about to hear what's going on with him. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I'll get back to you personally. Dan, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show. You are a very special person for me for multiple reasons, but part of that is that I saw you in kind of relatively early times of my working with mind-body issues, and we hit it off right away, and I knew there was going to be a longer-term connection there than just me trying to get you relief from some of these symptoms. So I want to thank you for coming on. You're not just a pain and symptoms recoverer, but you're also a practitioner. And so we get to hear both sides of these. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here with you.
So let's talk first about the story of your symptoms, how they came to be, and then how you came to see me. Let's just start there.
I think as we've discussed, the longer I've been through this journey, the longer I've reflected that it's been my whole life. I mean, I had crippling stomach aches when I was a kid, and, a lot of reasons for that we could unpack. But the onset that really led me to this work was around 2011. I was just making the transition from college into the quote unquote real world. I was working in a teaching program called City Year, kind of like Teach for America, in South Side of Chicago, exposed to a culture I had not had much exposure to. It was really hard work. I was also ending a romantic relationship. I was stressed. I was doubtful. And actually, right at the time that this kind of manifestation of the symptoms emerged, I'm an obsessive live music fan. I just come back from seeing a bunch of music, was partying a lot at the time, was, putting things in my body that felt helpful, but were really a different kind of protection. And I got sick, and I thought, maybe I'm just a little hungover. I've just been having a good time for a few days, but I didn't recover. It felt like I had the flu. It felt like I had the flu every single day. And I was panicked. I was pretty despairing. I sought out all of the tools within the traditional medical community that I knew to exist. Eventually, I got this label, chronic fatigue syndrome, and we could talk all about my feeling about labels, but that really is a label that they give when they don't know what else is there. It's just this kind of empty bucket label. It's like, well, it seems like maybe it's this, because I've had physicals, I saw an ear, nose, and throat specialist. I had all kinds of symptoms that I could go into, and they're like, yeah, no, you're like really healthy. I still remember this one doctor, like in training, I think he said, maybe you should try like having a beer and eating a steak once in a while. Like, cause I was like doing a lot of things with my, I was like, that's all you have for me. Like,
we should call it like confused doctor syndrome.
Confused doctor syndrome. And in a funny way, I think maybe that guy was even more psychologically minded than he knew. He's like, well, yeah, none of this is going to prove useful for you. So maybe it's something about the way you're living or your personality. But anyway, yeah, I can dip into a bit of the symptoms. Just waking up was horrendous. I had just enormous fatigue. My brain literally felt offline. Like I couldn't think. I was dragging myself to work. I used to take the bus and literally had to like just use pretty much every ounce of strength I had just to like charge my energy up and get through the day. But it ebbed and flowed. There were different things that I could do. Like I have a pretty intense personality when I direct my energy there. So I could like push myself through a workout. But, I would collapse and it wouldn't, wouldn't really help. It wouldn't alleviate. I could prove to myself that I could do it, but I still had no answers. And so I went through a bunch of tools. I took medications, like the Mayo Clinic recommended antidepressants. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm depressed. Like, this is horrible. I don't know. I'll try anything.
Who wouldn't be?
Who wouldn't be? And so that was really the onset. And then ultimately that led to, I discovered Sarno because actually my father had met Sarno years ago. He had some neck pain that he was working through, and it might have been, I'm not actually sure how we got connected to him, but he learned about this, and it helped him at the time, though, yeah, I'd never heard him mention it before until then. I was really struggling. Read Sarno's book, and, I think for some people, it's, they can have the experience where they are open to the knowledge. They read the book, and it's like, boom,
right,
cleared. The symptoms are gone. Their belief, their conviction is that quick. And I have a theory about that. They may not have been an incredibly self-doubting person. They may have had fairly secure attachments in their life of just, but as you talk about, I think mind-body symptoms are fairly universal and human. And so, people can fall all along the spectrum of this. I was not that way. I'm an incredibly intellectualizing person, actually a very emotional person, but, that didn't necessarily give me access to what all my emotions meant or understanding them. So I'm also a seeker, and I'm a pretty open person. So like when I took Sarno's work, when I read that, I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Like I get this, but I didn't get better. I might have gotten a little bit better, and my journey went on for like 10 years. So I got better in percentages, and that might have helped a little, but I wasn't anywhere near where I wanted to be. I got introduced to mind-body therapist in the area, started working with him, and then actually heard about you. I still remember he said, I don't know how he came up, but I was struggling and looking for any answers, and maybe just looking for any outside help too. And he's like, well, this is the best therapist that I've ever met. He still remember he said that about you. Wow. And I was like, well, why am I meeting with you? I meet this guy. And it just so happened that you were in New York City, and I'm originally from New Jersey, and over a break or something, and I was visiting my family, I just reached out, and we met. I think I still remember. I think I just had surgery, actually, because I've had surgeries on my labrum, both ones. And I came in like a sling, and I
remember that.
Met you in this like basement.
That's
office.
Right. It was in my basement office on Lexington Avenue back then.
Exactly right. And we talked, and I don't remember all of what we talked about, but I remember doubt. And I remember, even if we didn't use the words power, I remember feeling really validated, just in the sense of what capacities, lied ahead for me. The fact that I could potentially do this work if I wanted to. I'm not sure if I'd gone back to school at that point yet, but may have been right at the point where I did.
Mm-hmm.
So the journey continued on from there. But even, I had these ideas. I had, okay, maybe it's doubt. I am a doubting person. Maybe there's this emotional reservoir in me. I am an emotional person. I've struggled with all sorts of things, but it was still so much in my head that I really didn't have conviction, which for me, and I can talk about, I think this process really starts with our beliefs, with our conviction. Like, we can do all sorts of things for ourselves that I do now that help a lot. But if I didn't, but I did them before too. And if I didn't have the conviction that I am not sick, that there is really nothing wrong with me, it doesn't, yoga, right, going for a walk, it's not going to make that much of a difference. And so, and I think there's a lot of wonderful tools in the mind body community. I know, like Nicole Sachs talks about journaling. Journaling is, I journaled every day. I mean, and I like to write, but it wasn't, but it didn't get better. I just didn't get better. And, I was going through this journey where I was training to be a clinician too. So there was so much doubt, so much insecurity, so much shame around, well, I'm going to help other people heal. I can't heal myself. What I learned over time, and there's a few core things that I learned about the nervous system. I learned about safety and how we're literally just always scanning for danger and threat, and that our bodies need to feel safe. I also learned about emotion regulation, that I do have a really sensitive nervous system. I have gotten pretty dysregulated over time. But what I also learned is that I'm a very visceral person. I'm a very touchy person, literally, like I'm very sensitive to touch. And I needed, for me to find, it does come back to beliefs, but for me to find conviction in my beliefs that I wasn't sick, that this wasn't some medical illness, I needed to feel energy move around in my body. I needed to feel some more body focus.
You're hitting on a number of key points, and so I just wanted to highlight what I'm thinking about this. One thing is that when you came to see me, when I work with anybody on doubt, one thing that I know, and I know it more now than I did even when you first came to see me, because I'm always learning, including from you. I learn from the people that I work with. I learn that people have to have their own pathway to resolving their doubt. And what you're saying is, I think it was very helpful to put it on your radar, doubt and all that stuff. You knew that you were a doubting person, but and you doubted so much that you were like, I don't know that I will ever.
I doubted you. I doubted everyone.
Yeah.
I doubted myself.
And it makes sense. But what I really love about what you did is that you kind of kept reaching out to different resources, different situations for what you needed, including me. We kept up over the years. We talked about things. And I do think one of the things that I did that I would think was pretty useful is that I kept encouraging you about the value of you, just you. And, I would tell you, I think you can be one of the all-time greats in this. And I do believe that 100%. And you've shown me that even more with what you did, because you followed your path. You used the framework that I gave you as a basis for some things, but then you followed your path. And everybody resolves doubt differently. And one of the things I was struck by is you needed to feel it in your body. And you also needed to come to accept that you being, I'm going to put in quotes, sensitive, because I am too, could also be seen as like super intelligent and empathic and taking things in, but you had to figure out how to channel it all. And I feel like that's something that you've kind of figured out how to do. So maybe you can break down a little bit what your personal system has become around dealing with these symptoms.
Because you're right. And even using a word like sensitive to define ourselves, it depends what we mean by that. I had to learn that, one healer told me that, I'm a finely tuned instrument. There's a lot of power in that. There's immense power in that. And actually, I think the more we suffer, the more there is evidence that we are immensely powerful, because if our brain can make us suffer that much, it can do incredible things, and it can lead us to, immense amounts of joy and freedom and inspiration. And that's what I am discovering now about myself. And it feels honestly magical. I think when you go through this, when I go through this journey, I trained, I did, years of school and clinical work and all that stuff. Nothing touches what I've learned and gained from my own journey, and accessing that power has given me everything. I mean, it has legitimately changed my life in every conceivable way. So, I use words like that, but I use them with conviction that they represent a source of power. And that, speaking about my kind of personal system, Yes, I am a seeker, and my mother is a seeker in the energy world. So I have sought far and wide beyond the bounds of what people, even within people within the mind body world, would consider effective. But there's a lot of healers out there, and a lot of people who have really valuable ways of knowing and working with energy in the body. So I did all of that. But really, at the end of the day, it was to come back to conviction. It was to come back to a belief that I am whole, that I am good enough, that I am lovable, and that I am not sick. And in fact, that I'm immensely powerful.
And what were the turning points for you in that to be able to realize that? I don't even know if you can sum that up. It's a hard.
Yeah, there are points along the way. Like, honestly, when I first met you and when I was introduced to the work, I got a little better. When I made the decision for myself that I can, that I am a healer and I can pursue psychology, and even extend beyond that, I got a little better. I went through grad school. I made all different kinds of lifestyle changes, which help, and I would talk about it as, ultimately, it's creating access to what I consider the core therapeutic process, acknowledging the vulnerabilities inside us and acknowledging the power. And we need to, we don't always need to know what that is. We just need to clear the blockages in its way. And so I need to clear out some blockages, but I also needed to find conviction. And so, I wrote my whole dissertation on the history of the label chronic fatigue syndrome and other mind body symptoms and all of that. And so I had all the knowledge. I had literally all the knowledge, but I still needed some of that body work. So one thing that doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but it's called network chiropractic work, I discovered, which is a kind of chiropractic work. It is not at all mechanical. It's not about cracking your back or anything like that. It's about tapping directly into the nervous system and really helping things realign, release tension. All my symptoms went away. I was getting sick every single day, and all my symptoms went away. So I had experiences that showed me, wait a second, people barely touched me. I also worked with some energy healers who had me screaming in rage and crying based on literally not even through talk therapy, not even like, because I've been through, I have a way of, there's a way to be vulnerable where you go into therapy or just talk to someone and you can talk all about what happened to you as a kid. You can talk about your vulnerabilities, but you're up here. Right. You're not accessing this. So I had people helping me literally feel. When I talk about emotions, like I'm talking about literal, physical, energetic entities in my body that I could feel move. And I'd be like, I think there's something rising up into my throat. And I had a lot of difficulty crying. And that's not surprising, knowing, I think, how my brain was attempting to keep me safe. No, that's probably not okay. That's probably embarrassing, or it's probably shameful. And I think
or exposing in some way, or it's a vulnerability.
It's a vulnerability, and we all learn ways to survive our environment. Our brain, learns ways to protect us against these emotional responses that may, based on how they're responded to in our environments, may teach us, oh, that's probably not okay. People don't like that. And so when I was able to start accessing that, when I was able to recognize that there was someone in there, literally, I'll get imagery of a kind of a younger part of myself, or it could be me as the same age, crying or in distress. Meanwhile, I'm up here like, what's that about? And right. And I'm not here to say that I could always welcome that in and let it take me over, but even just, I'm trained in what's called attachment theory, and a lot of that is how we relate to people and how we relate to how caregivers relate to children. But I take that internally, and how we relate to ourselves is that same relationship, because there's a part of us that really is still a child, and the body is very primitive in a lot of ways. It's made to feel unsafe with all sorts of things, and we may be self-punishing and say, that's not okay, get over that. but I needed to just see that part and be like, oh, okay, there's sadness there. And sometimes just the being with it is enough. And it's a process in which, and I can go into more detail about that, but we don't have to let that part lead. We don't have to let the insecure and fearful part lead. But just like, just like a child, we can listen to it. We can listen to them. I see that you're scared. I see that you're, this is a really, it's a really frightening thing we're about to do. I'm not going to let you lead. There's another powerful part of me that's going to take charge, but I see you and I'll be with you, and I'll let that show up.
But I did want to say, Dan,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to highlight this because it's so important. You're bringing up the fact that you can know things in your head and not in your heart. Now, people know this all the time, but it explains why therapy can go on for so long, talking about the exact issues you need to be talking about, but not get you where you need to go. And I have found that the body work that we do, the mind-body work, is so much more powerful and so much more effective at getting you to that heart of the matter, connecting to whatever that is inside of us. And I that's what I'm hearing in what you're saying. Actually, I was thinking about a particular thing that you told me recently. I think you were seeing, you had gone to meet with an intuitive. Do I have this right?
Yeah, they might describe themselves as...
I don't know what it would be described as, but it's one of the things I love about you. You're just like, should I explore it? Yes. And you just go. And you let yourself have that. But there was this moment where you were saying that somebody who you were meeting with in some capacity said that they understood something about you. And when they said it back to you, it was like a version of what I had said. And there was something about doubt. And there was something about that confirmation that can be important. I wondered if you could just talk about that briefly.
Yeah. So, yes, I am a seeker and I have sought far and wide. And, we could see that in one way as a form of doubting or as a form of skepticism about what is traditionally given to us. I take a lot of things with a grain of salt. If I'm not happy with something, my traditional psychological training, I was like, okay, but what else is out there? And so, but there's also, for me, what gives me the most conviction is when ways of knowing overlap. I was reading a few chapters in your book, and I think you talked about when before there was lots of ease of communication, there were cultures all around the world who came to similar knowledge and wisdom. What is more scientific and convincing than that? For me, when I hear you talk about doubt, and I hear this person who has a much different way of knowing say to me, I think your symptoms are about doubt. I'm like, shit, maybe my symptoms are about doubt. It's like, right. I'm that way. For me to really feel conviction, that is so enforcing and empowering for me.
Yeah. Well, you get it when you get it from multiple sources, it's much more convincing. It's one of the reasons. So let me clarify, actually, because you're reading some of the chapters in my book. These are rough drafts because some people are waiting for the book to be finished.
Yeah, I didn't mean.
I'm waiting for the book to be finished more than anybody. No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that when people are listening, that the book's not out yet, but it's coming soon.
Not yet.
But the reason that I wrote the book, in addition to having my particular take on this that I felt was useful and the kind of memoir aspect of it, was that the book takes every angle I looked at, and the convergence of those things is how I got my doubt down. It wasn't from one thing. It was from the fact that so many things fit together that I was like, yes, I can believe it now. So it felt to me like that was a moment for you of, wow, this other world converges. And it was around the time, if I'm understanding this correctly, where your symptoms started to get significantly better in a particular way.
Yeah.
So it does seem like resolving that doubt or having the conviction, whatever we want to call it, got you over the hump. Can you talk a little bit about how the symptoms then shifted from there?
I was in a process where Even when I'd made lots of progress, considerable progress, because before it was literally just like every day, all the time, it was rough. But I could go stretches where I felt pretty good, but I couldn't really go a single day, even so, without a flare up, an episode. And then I would get, what started happening is I started getting sick, it felt like I had contracted something and I maybe had to miss work or be in bed for a few days. And that actually was happening like frequently. At one point it was happening like every single week. Even when I had all the knowledge and felt like and was a practicing clinician. So, it's hard to navigate that within myself. But when I had that conviction, when I was able to hear that about doubt and really felt something in me shift, I stopped getting sick. And I just stopped getting sick, and I had symptoms, and still, I would wake up in the morning and I would feel pain, or I would feel something about coming out of, that unconscious state, that dream state, elicited things in me. But I had the belief that I know what this is. And actually I could see it as an opportunity, because when I use that with my patients, I hate that word because the opportunity is usually not super fun, but it does
right.
lead to really incredible things. And I started waking up and having the symptoms, but I would get up, I would do some of the things that I do, a little meditation, a little yoga, and I would literally be having, I don't know how else to describe it outside of like emotional seizures. Like the emotions were like rising up inside me.
Wow.
It's weird to talk about, but bubbling up. And on the other side of that was like, it might have been tears. It might have been an overwhelming joy and inspiration. Like it felt like the space is opening up inside me that had been tamped down. And once I started seeing that, I may have still had some symptoms, and symptoms still pop up. I mean, we're embodied. We live in bodies, like that, bodies produce all kinds of symptoms, but my belief about it had completely changed. And so there was and sometimes fear and doubt shows up, but there was no more core fear about what this meant for me. And that truly made all the difference. Everything opened up for me. I do feel like my possibilities are limitless, because even when there is fear and doubt or symptoms, alongside that is the powerful part that's getting encouraged. And
right.
And I might be feeling inspired and have a symptom, and I it's fine. It's okay, because I know what this process is. I know my body is upgrading. It's learning to live differently.
So, I mean, you are really you're a poster child for the 3 columns work in a way, even though you did it so your way. But that's part of the 3 columns work, because when it comes to the power column work that I talk about, it really is about empowering you to be you and do it your way. But I'm hearing that when you resolved doubt, it changed. And even though we talked about doubt as a concept, we knew it was going to take some time for you to resolve doubt. And one of the reasons for that is that, when you're really smart and you're really inquisitive and you have that finely attuned machine, you have to grapple with so much more. But what I find is that the people like you who may take longer to get fully better, when you do get fully better, you tend to have the most explosive power column experience. And it's a really cool thing to see.
It feels miraculous, honestly. Yeah.
It's the same thing that happened to me. It was life-changing. I went, when I discovered Sarno, my only goal for 8 years before that, and even then, was just to get rid of the symptoms. That's all I wanted. And of course that would be the case. And then as I started to find out, oh, wow, there's a lot more here. But that didn't happen right away. That happened from getting it organized in my mind. And I find that when you resolve doubt and you really feel at peace about it, the power column just explodes. And sometimes we have to work from the other angle, get you powerful to reduce the doubt. I think we also did some of that work. And when I say you mostly.
Well, I think that is actually very crucial, because a lot of therapy work and other forms of treatment, go right for the vulnerability. But that was a little bit too hard for me. I actually needed to feel powerful enough in myself before I could feel safe enough to allow those things to show up.
It makes all the sense in the world. And now you're on this journey that's amazing, because you're going to develop your way of doing this. Obviously you and I, our work together is informing certain things. And in fact, later today, we're starting our training on my short-term consultations. So you're clearly going to be incorporating some of what I do, but you're always doing such a great job putting your stamp on it. And the role that I feel that I play in this is that I'm encouraging you. Your stamp is so important. You're going to help people in certain ways that I wouldn't be able to do because of you, because of who you are. I can do what I can do, and you can do what you can do, and we're both going to do that. And I don't know, there's something just so moving about that. I love that. I'm at a loss for words about it, which is a funny way to end an interview. But I think so. Dan, I want to have you back on multiple times. I'm sure what people are seeing here is what happens when you and I talk. We both start just exploding with ideas, and I want to go in this direction, and that connectedness and that connection that we have, I treasure, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And so I want to thank you for coming on, and we'll have you on again very soon, if you'll have us.
Well, absolutely have you. Thank you so much. I value so much of what you've given me. Really, it has been that encouragement all along the way, and allowing me to see my own specialness, my own power is really an invaluable gift. And so happy to have you as part of my journey and to be a part of yours.
Thank you, Dan. Well, I couldn't believe in anybody more than you. So I'm excited to see where this goes. We'll have you on again soon, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much.
Well, you all just witnessed what Dan and I do a lot. We start talking about these things, and he and I we vibe so well. We have that deep connection, and there's something about it that I think has really been healing for us both. To feel seen by each other, and to know that our individual ways of thinking about things help has been so great. But he is a great example for me of the joy that I get out of this work, because he not only has gotten his symptoms cleared. Of course, we all have mind-body symptoms that go on because it's the human condition, but he's gotten the symptoms to a place where they're really reduced in a very nice way. But he's also become powerful, and he's become more himself. And that is a joy to see. And I'm glad that we got to share his work with you, and we'll have him on again soon. So if you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below.